This article says, behold, the largest storm in our solar system. Jupiter's great red spot, everything you need to know. The great red spot is an anticyclone, a long-lasting area of high pressure on Jupiter, creating a persistent storm. It's a long-lasting, like what, trillions of years this storm has been going on? Located in Jupiter's southern hemisphere, it is the largest storm in our solar system, appearing as a giant red spot on Jupiter's surface. It has existed for the last 150 years, possibly even longer, according to NASA. The spot may have been discovered in 1664. So if they saw the spot in 1664, it's been more than 150 years. But anyway, this is what they're saying. This is NASA's website. Jupiter's great red spot, a swirling mystery. The largest and most powerful hurricanes ever recorded on Earth spanned over 1,000 miles across, with winds gusting up to around 200 miles an hour. That's wide enough to stretch across nearly the United States east of Texas. But even that kind of a storm is dwarfed by the great red spot, a gigantic storm in Jupiter. There, gigantic means twice as wide as the Earth. So it's a big storm. Well, the storms on Earth only last a day or two, and they move out of the way. And they're always moving. This one hasn't moved for 400 years because they discovered it in 1660 something. And before that, it was probably there. If they're telling the truth, it's been there forever. Well, I think they're lying, friends. Let me show you something. So remember the other day when I was asking AI or the Goggle Brothers all these questions, and they seemed to know what I was going to ask. And they would give me detailed answers, even though it was very difficult to frame the question because I was asking about things that, how long of a paragraph can my question be? But they seemed to know exactly what I meant. But I noticed that if you ask AI a question they don't want to answer, they don't answer it. Look at this. I wrote, is the picture of Jupiter a painting or CGI? And they don't give you the AI response. Now, that is a testament to how very intelligent they are, because AI knows what I'm asking. And it knows that the answer is that all of them are CGI, that there are no pictures of space. So they just don't answer because they know they'd get themselves caught in a lie. New photos from Jupiter look like a Van Gogh painting. NASA's most recent CGI picture of Jupiter, the most recent one. Notice how every time you see it, it's a different picture. These are not the same planet or orb or whatever this is. The photoshoppers behind dreamy Jupiter photos. Swirly Jupiter. This is an enhanced color image of Jupiter's south pole. NASA releases closest, most pictures of Jupiter taken by Juno. Van Gogh Jupiter. So I wonder if we could actually get the answer to my question here. I made a very clear question. Are the pictures of Jupiter a painting or CGI? And nowhere in this, here's are photos of Jupiter real. It says data from the camera on board NASA's Juno mission called JunoCam will be made available to the public for processing into their own images. Okay, it still didn't answer, did it? It just said, they could have said yes or no. They're CGI, they're not CGI. Some of the pictures are real, some of them are not. They could have said any of that. But instead, the answer was data from the camera on board NASA's Juno mission we're going to make it available. Like, we haven't given you a real picture of Jupiter. It's all CGI, but we're gonna, because we're really getting good with the CGI, and this will fool you, and you'll think it's real. How does Jupiter look in the real? Now, they don't know. Friends, I'm telling you, they're lying. Every word of this demon that's inhabiting the AI, every word of the devil is a lie, because he's a liar and the father of it. So, let's take a look at another big lie. And I'm going to show you two things that I've proven over the last week to myself, and it is proof. And for anyone who wants to see this, if you've gotten any scientists out there that might be just scrolling through the web and found this, I would appreciate it if you'd come on here and fess up and say, look, Dave, is that your name, Dave? Okay. Well, I'm a scientist at NASA, and you got us. You know, I was being fooled too. I didn't know, or yeah, it's a big hoax. I already knew. We just didn't want to tell you, but thanks for, figuring it out. Whatever. One of you scientists is so smart. I mean, seemed like on that one video I did a few days ago, there was some guy that might have been a smart kind of scientist guy. And it was like, ha, 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 Dave, I know you're right, but don't you know you're wrong? Huh? Yeah, you're right, Dave, but you're wrong. Well, show me where I'm wrong, big shot. All you scientists, any of you, show me where I'm wrong. And this is just a very simple thing here. This is a very simple thing. Jupiter cannot be a storm if it doesn't move, if the shapes and the colors aren't moving. And why would it be all these beautiful colors like red and yellow and green and all this? Oh, it's ammonia and sulfur, whatever, all these different chemicals. And I guess they have these bright red colors in these chemicals, and they never mix. Well, they might not mix, but that's not how it works. They don't mix, they form compounds. And the higher compounds, like air, would be at the top, and the more hard metals would be at the bottom. This is going to be any planet anywhere in the universe. The gases are going to be on the top, and they're going to be in layers. They're not going to be all mixed together like a sand painting, right? That you keep turning it and it makes different shapes. Come on, guys. Are you idiots? You scientists, are you idiots, or are you just liars? You're full of shit. I'm sorry, but that's the only word I could use. Right? Stinky, foul, disgusting lies. You need to stop. Unless you really are fools, which, that could be too. But look at this. I want to show you this. So, I look up in the sky a couple days ago. I mentioned this to you guys the other day. And I see the sun and I see the moon. Now, the moon shines equally all around, they claim. I believe the moon, or the sun and the moon, are just holes in the atmosphere. They're just portals. I don't believe they're balls. And when we see the moon and we see the crescent and it looks like it's a round ball, it may be a crater. It may be literally a crater at the bottom of the negative pole. And there may be something there in that hole, as there is light coming through the sun, that might be a bulge in our direction. But if the moon has any kind of curvature, it's a crater rather than a bulge, because it's the bottom. Probably. Now, there's a lot I'm going to be doing some investigation about the moon. I'm going to do a lot more information about this. But we're going to keep it real simple today. I want to prove to you something. When you see the crescent, it looks like it's round, or could be a crater. Could be a convex, or could be a concave. We never thought of that, right? We never see the backside, just the one side. So when you see the crescent, you think, oh, the backside's dark. I'm looking at the backside. No, you're just looking at part of the face of the moon that we always see that is lit up. All right. Now, many days of the month, there are days where you can see the moon in the sky in the daytime and you can see the sun in the sky. And there's a direct line between the sun and the moon. That whole face then should be full moon whenever that happens. The earth's not in the way. What's in the way? What's getting in the way? So I thought to myself, well, maybe I'm imagining, I'm hallucinating. Maybe there's some, the thing is, if it's round, maybe the sun, even though it's up in the sky, is at some kind of angle where maybe I'm just not thinking about this right. Somehow or another, there would be a dark shadow on one side, right? But if the sun has a direct line, I mean, remember, the sun's shining supposedly all around in every direction. But if you were to find the apex of the circumference of that sun, and you were standing on, as I was, on this cliff, I could make a beeline from me to the apex of the sun, or the closest point of that bulge. Okay, and I can look at the sun. Then I can turn my head slightly left to another angle, and I see the moon. Now I can see the surface of the moon just like you always see the whole face of the moon, but only half of the moon or a quarter of the moon being lit up. But I could still make a beeline from my point to the moon, which would be the apex, right? The closest bulge facing me. That should be the brightest point, and the light should shine on the right of that bulge and on the left of the bulge, at the top of the bulge and at the bottom of the bulge. It should be a full moon. And you guys know that without me even having to prove that to you. Just think about it. If the sun is in the sky, the moon is in the sky, and there's nothing in between them, then it should be a full moon, and yet it's not. What does this prove, Dave? It proves that the moon is not being lit up by light that's traveling from the sun. It's not reflecting the sun. What is happening is like a light bulb. It does not have light in it. There is no light. It's not lit up. There's nothing but a glass bulb and a little filament inside. Nothing. However, if I were to take a wire and hook that bulb up with a wire to the battery, now the light somehow lights up. What is lighting up? Is it the battery lighting up and shining on the bulb? No, the bulb is lighting up by itself because you've turned it on. You've charged the particles in the bulb, in the filament. So the moon lights up on its own. It's like a filament, a heater core, whatever you want to, it's not as bright as the sun, so we'll say it's more of it's a bigger element rather than just a little filament. It's in a light bulb. It's an element like in a heater, and it's more of a darker, it's not a very bright color, but it's being lit up. The moon itself is some sort of charge. It's the negative charge. The sun is the positive charge. This is elementary, my dear Watson. Now, to show you that let me show you. And you can see that on the right side of the ball, there is a center of light, and it goes in all directions around. And if you can take that one direct line that goes to the center of the light, where it says center light at the right of the big ball, you find the lines going out, straight out, above, to the sides, and to the bottom. Find the center and pick the line that goes directly to where the center of the moon would be, that is directly in line with that center light. And you'll see that the light makes a straight beeline from the center of that light to the center of the glowing ball. However, because we're on the back side of that moon, which we're not when we're looking at the moon. I'm on the front side of the moon, right? And the sun is on the front side of the moon. We're both looking at the moon, the sun and me. And so I'm on the front side, just because the only side of the moon that faces the earth. But in this case, we're at the back side of this ball, and the sun is beyond the moon. In that case, the light wouldn't shine on the back side of the moon. Okay? But that's if I'm behind the moon. If I'm looking in the direction of the sun, and between me and the sun is the moon. However, if I'm looking the opposite direction of the sun, and I'm looking at the moon in that opposite direction, then it should be a full moon. And let me show you some more examples to prove this. Here's another one. You see, where all the lines converge on the left, that's the center. That's where they're all shining from this sun that's not on the screen, but we gather it's there because all the lines are going towards it. And it's shining, right? The center of the glare, where it's the brightest, is right at the bulge or the apex of that side of the moon. But the back side is dark. Now, let us put ourselves in between the source of the light and the moon. Let's stand with our back to the sun and our face to the moon. What would we see? A full moon. Now, right there, you're seeing like almost a half moon, but that's because we're looking at it from the side. We're not looking at it from being in between. So here's an example. And this is what I was seeing yesterday and the day before. You can see this up in the sky. I don't know where you're at, but notice that the sun is shining on those flowers. And you can see that the sun is behind us. And so the sun and the viewer, we're looking in the direction of the flowers, and we're seeing the sun shine on the flowers. And we're looking behind the flowers and up into the sky, and we see the moon, and we can see part of the moon is not lit up. Look at this next picture. Now in this picture you can see, obviously you can see the sun on the left side shining on the clouds. The clouds are dark behind the clouds. As you're going towards the moon, the clouds are darker. The sun is behind us and at our back, and we're looking at the clouds. The clouds have the bright light shining on the surface of the clouds. Behind the clouds is dark, and beyond the clouds is the moon. We should not be able to see any darkness on the moon because the whole face of the moon is facing us. Are you looking at this? Are you seeing this? Are you able to comprehend what I'm saying? And here's another picture with the very same thing. You can see the light highlights on the bushes. So the sun's behind us. We're looking, the sun and us, we're looking directly to the moon, and yet we have this big part of the moon that's not lit up. Something's wrong here. I think that should pretty much explain what I'm saying. That is conclusive proof. This is the first proof. This is the first piece of evidence I'm going to share with you today. That the moon is not reflecting light from the sun. It is lit up on one side, which has no bearing on where that sun might be. The only way, if I am standing with my back toward the sun and my face towards the moon, the only possible way that I'm not seeing a full moon, but I'm seeing a half moon or a crescent moon, is if the source of that light is not the sun. That's a fact, Jack. And this proves the first lie of this world that's being foisted upon you. Well, that's actually, if you are counting, that's the second time we've disproven NASA and the lies of this Truman Show that we're in. We've shown that they're lying about Jupiter. We're showing that they're lying about the sun shining on the moon, and that's not the case. The moon is its own light. And now I'm going to show you number 3. All right. As you can see, there is a picture of the moon. It could be CGI. It might be real. I don't care. We're not trying to prove whether or not the moon is there. We can all see the moon in broad daylight or even in the night. All I'm trying to do is depict for you what you would normally see when you look up in the sky and you see the moon, whether it's in the day or in the night. You see high definition. You can see the craters. You can see the shadows. Now think about this. I can stand at the top of my hill and look about 20 or 30 miles and see mountains. And I can see some definition. I can see a little bit of coloration changes and shadows and maybe what may almost appear to be blurry like cliffs or something. If I'm only 10, 15, 20 miles. But if you go and you look at the mountains in the background, which I'm not supposed to be able to see, like 50 miles away, there's no definition. There is no there's no shadows. It's just all sort of opaque. And that's 50 miles. Yes, through the worst of the Earth's atmosphere. But on a clear day, there's not going to be much in between you. You should be able to see pretty clearly on a clear day. You're only looking 30, 40, 50 miles. But when you're looking at the moon, they claim it's 239,000 miles. 239,000 miles. And you're looking through like thousands and thousands of feet, 20 miles of atmosphere or something. I mean, the atmosphere goes on and on and on, but they have these different layers. So the thicker air atmosphere is not that far. Well, let me just tell you what the Goggle brothers say. Earth's atmosphere extends roughly up to 10,000 kilometers or 6,000 miles above the planet's surface, although the majority of the atmosphere is concentrated much closer to the Earth. So, there is atmosphere. There is some density for 6,000 miles. Now, if I'm going to look 239,000 miles through 6,000 miles of atmosphere, and I can see definition like that, 239,000 miles away, I can see that kind of definition. But I cannot see any definition on a mountain 40 miles away. There's something's wrong. Somebody's lying. You've all seen the moon, and that's what you see. You can see craters. Now, this can't be CGI, although it could be. It doesn't matter because we can all look up into the sky and see this. And if you have any kind of binoculars or anything, you can literally see every little crevice and crack and bump on the moon. Friends, I'm telling you, it is impossible to see 239,000 miles and see that kind of definition. It cannot, absolutely, it would be impossible for the moon to be that far. And if you're going by how far you can see on Earth, you might conclude that the sun may only be 100 miles above us. Maybe 200 miles, maybe 50 miles. I don't know. I would say, I'm going to guess, close to 100 miles, 200 miles above us. It cannot possibly be further than that. Because we are seeing the definition as if we're literally standing in front of it. And this is line number 3 that we have proven just today. We have shown that that thing, whatever that thing is not a big round ball 239,000 miles away. That's a lie. So, all these lies. I mean, we've been hearing lies for a long, long time, and Satan's been at work for a long time. But recently, in the last, I would say 80 years or whatever, since World War II, and since World War II, it's been on steroids. The rocket programs and the space programs. And it's all about this Project Paperclip and these scientists that they brought over from Germany. And Einstein and the nuclear and all of this. And the Silicon Valley is a bigger part of this than you know. I mean, the CIA, the Aleister Crowley, the Church of Satan, the Hollywood, the rock and roll, the Charles Manson, all of this is related. These crazy secrets. Now, I was sent a video to watch early this morning when I woke up, and I sat and watched it. It's like 2 hours long. It's long. I don't know how long it is. And it took a while. I had to put it on a quicker speed, like 1.5, just to listen to it. If you put it at 1.75, it goes a little too fast. You might miss some stuff. And if you do miss it, some of the things she's saying at 1.5, you can stop it and go back and slow it down for a second and listen to what she's saying. But some of it, you can watch it at 1.5 because it's so long and it's hard to watch that long of a... But it's very interesting if you've got the time. It's mind-blowing what this woman, whose name is Rosemary, says. We're told originally, what I was told, and the way people were describing it, is she was just Elon Musk's babysitter. Well, it's much deeper than that. She's a child of this breeding. She tells you she was right in the midst of all this and was running drugs for him, and she was assigned to taking care of Elon. So she was with Elon from the time he was born. You got to hear her story. She tells it like it is. You can see that she's not making it up because the person who's interviewing her is holding her to the fire and saying, "What did you say? When did this happen?" And having her back up and tell her story. And it all pans out, even though it sounds so crazy, the things that she's saying. Like, how could this be? Are you serious? But see, you think, well, it couldn't be. And then you realize, wait a minute, we've heard all this stuff before. Right? We've heard this. We've been hearing this Silicon Valley, Charles Manson, satanic Aleister Crowley stuff for years. She's just given us more details. This woman will give you more details of what's going on, why it's happening, even though I don't think she knows some of the... She certainly doesn't know the Bible as well as we do, and she's just learning that. She wants to be a Christian, but she knows and has connections. She was an eyewitness to the Bohemian Grove and all these people and things that they were doing in the Hollywood stars. She was at the ball, and she was used heavily by them, and she's got a story that you've just got to hear. I encourage everyone to listen to this woman's story and then decide whether you really want to vote for the Antichrist this year. But this is history. Like, I guess the History Channel, this is their website. The mystery of Nikola Tesla's missing files. The FBI has finally declassified its files on Nikola Tesla, but questions remain. There's the old legend himself. I personally believe this guy is a front. I don't believe he knew anything. I think he's probably close to an imbecile. But I do believe he's part of the Bavarian Illuminati. And they all, they're pulling off some kind of hoax. But I believe it was the devil himself that gave this information to a group of this Illuminati group. But he may be or may not be. We don't know the details. But it says in this article, After Nikola Tesla was found dead in January of 1943 in his hotel room in New York City, representatives of the U.S. government Office of Alien Property seized many documents relating to the brilliant and prolific 86-year-old inventor's work. It was the height of the World War II. All this happened after World War II. This is Project Paperclip, guys. And I'm going to tell you, and I want you to understand, and this is what this lady who was supposedly like his babysitter tells us, is that the guy that has the name Tesla today, Elon, whose name was originally El Elyon, whose mother's name is Light, and this woman that tells the story says her name was Moon, and she was supposed to marry Elon, but she refused. And there's a lot of stuff in this video. But all this happened because of Project Paperclip. And she claims in her story, which I believe completely, that all this has to do with the NAZI. That's what this is. This is a group of individuals that took over the world. And they did so, I believe, by contacting Satan. So it was after World War II, and Tesla claimed to have invented a powerful particle beam weapon, known as the death ray, that could have proved invaluable in the ongoing conflict. So rather than risk Tesla's technology falling into the hands of the American enemies, this is a likely story. I think the Nazis invented all this information, brought it over here in Project Paperclip, and this is their story, right? Some genius figured it out. But the characters in this story are important. So rather than risk Tesla's technology falling in the hands of American enemies, the government swooped in, took possession of all the property and documents from his room at the New Yorker hotel. What happened to Tesla's files from there, as well as what exactly was in those files, remains shrouded in mystery and ripe for conspiracy theories, because they're leading you off in a wild goose chase. It was really a satanic cult. And they got this from Satan himself. This is a plot to overthrow Jesus Christ when he returns. And yes, Elon Musk is probably the beast or something of that character. Aleister Crowley claimed to be the beast. Some of them, a lot of them, Parsons, John Dee and Edward Kelly, they all brought up the devil from the bottomless pit. But in fact, there will be one who will be the beast. And according to this woman, Elon may not be human. She believed he was spawned in a laboratory near San Francisco. And he's not human. He doesn't talk like a human. And she said that he grew up from the age of 2 years old to an adult before her eyes within just a few minutes. It was not, he was just like some created thing in a test tube. So you'll have to see her interview. But there were 250 pages of Tesla's related documents under the Freedom of Information Act. In 2016, the Bureau followed up with 2 additional releases, the latest in March of 2018. And now they're missing. 3 weeks after the Serbian-American inventor's death, an electrical engineer from Massachusetts Institute of Technology, MIT, was tasked with evaluating his papers to determine whether they contained any ideas of significant value. According to the declassified files, Dr. John G. Trump, which is Donald Trump's uncle's son. So they were very close. They knew each other quite well. This is the family that was involved in this, NAZI work. These files that were coming right straight from Satan. Now, why did they choose Trump to analyze the papers? Well, Trump reported that his analysis showed Tesla's efforts to be primarily of speculative, philosophical, and promotional character, and said the papers did not include new, sound, workable principles. Well, they were telling the world that, but they were satanic instructions. They took them into the little coven there, which Trump and his family is a part of, and the Musk family, and yeah, the whole elite Bavarian family are involved in. And this lady talks about Napa Valley and the Bohemian Grove, San Francisco, Silicon Valley, and all that area, which, by the way, is kind of where I was born, raised, and grew up. And so I had contact with a lot of these very elite individuals and some of the Jehovah's Witness organizations. They have to do with Hollywood and they have a lot to do with Silicon Valley. I was working with people that created Hewlett Packard and, Bell Telephone and AT&T and things like this. People who own bank chains and invented, all kinds of things. And we've talked about some of that in some of my videos. So, I was in that area growing up when all this was going down. And wait till you find out who Charles Manson really was. You need to go and watch that lady's presentation. But anyway, he said, yeah, it's nothing. So here's John G. Trump. Now take a look at that guy. Who does he remind you of? If that is not the spitting image of the WikiLeaks guy, Julian Assange, then I don't know what to tell you. I don't see just a resemblance. I would lay odds that Julian Assange is related to Donald G. Trump and Donald J. Trump. And I would lay odds that there is some kind of conspiracy going on with Julian Assange and him becoming president, with Donald Trump becoming president. Now, that is just my speculation, but I cannot ignore the fact that this man named John Trump looks identical, probably like a father kind of figure, what you would imagine Julian Assange's father or grandfather would look like. And why am I saying that without knowing for sure? Because I'm saying that these families that are involved with this, they're heavily involved. They have deep ties. They're all in on it. I don't believe that Julian Assange was really locked up somewhere all this time. I think it's been a big hoax. Yeah, a hoax. So it says the scientist's name undoubtedly rings a bell, as John G. Trump was the uncle of the 45th U.S. President, Donald Trump. The younger brother of Trump's father, Fred. He helped design X-ray machines that greatly helped cancer patients and worked on radar research for the Allies during World War II. Donald Trump himself cited his uncle's credentials often during his presidential campaign. My uncle used to tell me about nuclear before nuclear was nuclear, he once told an interviewer. At the time, the FBI pointed to... Now remember, why would the government steal these files and send in Trump? Because the people that are in this type of government, or the NASA or the CIA or the science, part of it, the science part of it, these are all from Project Paperclip. They're all NAZIs. They're all family. And it includes, and you got to listen to this lady that I'll put a link in the info box. She says that Elon was literally an NAZI, and his father was like Hitler in Canada, and they had, you got to hear the story. But all of this is related. So Dr. Trump's report as evidence that Tesla's vaunted death ray particle beam weapon didn't exist outside of rumors and speculation. Well, of course it did. This is where we see the UFOs after World War II appearing. This was the work that the NAZIs were doing. And they've got bases at the Antarctic and all of this. Yes. Lockheed Martin, Boeing, and all these companies are involved. Supposedly, they've got a plant that's controlling the weather down at the Antarctic. And guess who is in control of the janitorial down there? Lockheed Martin, according to Redacted that I watched the other day. So The U.S. government itself was split in its response to Tesla's technology. Mark Seffer, author of the biography Wizard, The Life and Times of Nikola Tesla, also says a group of military personnel at Wright-Patterson's Air Force Base in Dayton, Ohio, including Brigadier General L.C. Craigie, had a very different opinion of Tesla's ideas. Craigie was the first person to ever fly a jet plane for the military, so he was like the John Glenn of the day, Cipher says. He said there's something to this. The particle beam weapon is real. So you have two different groups. One group dismissing Tesla's inventions, and another group saying there's really something to it. Then there's the nagging question of the missing files. When Tesla died, his estate was to go to his nephew, Sava Kosnovic, who at the time was the Yugoslav ambassador to the United States. Of course they are. They're all involved in the United States government, right? They're all part of Project Paperclip. Thanks to the familial connection with the Serbia's most celebrated inventor, according to, that's where Tesla's from. According to the recently declassified documents, some in the FBI feared Kozanovic was trying to wrest control of Tesla's technology in order to make such information available to the enemy. So anyway, they just stole them, but they ended up putting in a museum. Well, it turns out not all of them ended up in the museum, so they're missing. A lot of them are missing. This is now in the hands of, guess who? All this information. This Shalom girl, her name is Rosemary, that I want you to see, who had the name Moon by these individuals, was bred by the NAZIs. Her father was high up in that. And they were sent over, Project Paperclip, her family, over to San Francisco area and the Hollywood area and the Silicon Valley and all of this. They were the people that were doing the Bohemian Grove. They were the one, Reagan was there. She talks about Gomer Pyle and Doris Day and all the people that we've talked about, and Charlie Manson. And, I knew that Charlie Manson was part of some big, greater occult activity, involved with the Beatles and Beach Boys and all of this. He was writing songs for the Beatles and stuff. But what I didn't know, according to her, is he was literally the head of the church, this satanic church. It wasn't really Anton LaVey as much as it was. I mean, there may have been different, aspects to it. But Charlie Manson was this big, deity to the satanic church. And that they tried to get him into an insane asylum so they could help him escape. And she talks about all these different things that was going on. If you really look at all the details that she has, there's no doubt that what she's saying is the truth. But she really does give a lot of details that I'm sure a lot of people would hear what she has to say and would say she's just making it up, or it's just a hoax, or she's crazy. But there's stories she tells where she ran away and lived in the woods and drank creek water and hid out for a long time to get away from them. And she talks about stories where she was in a car near Paradise, California, which is where I was at, where my father to this day lives, which is that area where they burned them out, right? And the cars just melted because of some death ray thing that they've got. Well, she was going through there before that happened, before they burned Paradise out. She says she was driving along in her car, and it just instantly caught on fire and was melted down into the dirt. It was not a logical thing. It was something that was completely crazy. So the police and the ambulances all came out there, and people were witnesses, and they saw her walk right through the flames and got out of that car. And there was no human way that she could have gotten out of that car as it melted on the freeway. And they took her to the hospital. She says she was there for a short, I don't know if she said 2 hours or 2 days, but she was at the hospital, and then they ended up whisking her off to a mental institution because somebody said she poured gasoline on her car, and that's what caused the car to, instantly combust on the freeway. Well, that story doesn't make any sense because if you burn your car, it doesn't melt, like that. And you say, yeah, but we don't believe in melting cars, Dave. Well, the melting cars were everywhere up there in paradise, near where she was, in this area between Napa and Silicon Valley and Paradise, California. And Sacramento, of course, which is kind of where I was for a long time. I worked for people in that area. But it's now, it's all over the web. Go look it up. That they have some kind of a thing that just melts cars, right? Like just liquid, and they just melt. And no heat is that hot just from a fire. So who is this lady? She says she's a Christian, but she says that her father was involved in this, this evil group. And he was a bad guy. And him and some others, they had this program where they had these blue-eyed blonde virgins over in Spain. And they stole them or something. They bred them. And her father bred with one of them, and she was the product. They would have all these, parties and these balls and things like this. And they had these individuals that were more or less bred, that they raised and bred for their service. So we don't know who these people are that are breeding with these girls. There's some indication that it could be something to do with whatever it is that the Nephilim were a part of or whatever. That's her story. I don't know. I don't think, she says she does know. I don't think anybody really knows what's going on here. But they did have laboratories, and they were cloning people, and all of this stuff was going on at the time. And she says that she knows that Elon Musk was born in a test tube. He's not even real. He never was allowed to go outside. To this day, he doesn't go outside. He literally opened up a portal in his bedroom while she, the babysitter, which is just, she wasn't really a babysitter. She was bred to just kind of be their servant and do things for them. She was running drugs for them to the Bohemian Grove and other places at Napa wineries. She says she didn't know that she was running drugs. They told her she was delivering strawberries. So she was very naive, but also a lot of things happened to her that she began to wake up. And she knew they were evil, and she got away. But so she spent some of her formidable years as a young woman. She was there when see, they say that, well, you can look this up, that Elon Musk was born in 1971 or something like this. She says that's not true. He just was presented as this little baby, I think she says around 1981, somewhere in there. And she witnessed this little toddler, 2 years old, that could, as she was supposed to watch little Elon. She was always there watching him, I guess like a babysitter, and taking care of him. And then later on, she was supposed to marry him or whatever. But she was only like a teenager herself at this time. And she says this little Elon was 2 years old. And within just, I don't know, days or on, like, voila, he just grew up into a man. And even when he was just 2 years old, he was able to talk fluently. He would play chess and win every time. He told her of all these crazy things about the Nephilim and stuff. And he went into his bedroom one time and he set up these little, what she called like Stonehenge, like rock statues, little statues that they were like deities. They had bird heads and wolf heads and serpent heads or whatever, like you see in the Sumerian mythology, which is pictures of the astrological signs is what it is. But I guess there was like 12 of them. They were like these statues, and he set them up in a circle, kind of like Stonehenge. And he did this like seance in his bedroom, and there was a swirling that occurred, and he came running out, and he says, Moon, which is what he called her, I guess, come look at my friends. I want you to meet my friends. And she goes into his bedroom, and he's got this all set up there, and this swirling black hole is enveloping him. She runs over there and grabs him, and they both were sucked into this vortex where she is standing at the foot of these divine, like demonic gods or something. And she's saying the name of Jesus and please deliver us. And all of a sudden they're back into the bedroom. And Elon's standing there and looking at her and says, hey, what's the matter? You don't like my friends? So Elon was this little genius child from the time he was born and grew up in a moment. Like, I don't know if she ever said how long it took. He just grew up. And then he was this young man. And she tells about how his name was originally El Elyon. And all the different names that everyone had. Remember how Elon's always naming his kids all these weird names? Like that Grimes lady and all this weirdness going on. Well, they're breeding them. I don't know who this Grimes lady is. Maybe that's another breeder. I don't know. But she says that he is literally not a human being. He's a test tube clone or something. And that his father, or probably I think his grandfather, was like back there with Hitler and was kind of in charge of Canada or something. I know they also lived in different places like Africa and place. They were going all over the world getting treasures. And the other lady asked her, what do you mean? Well, she says, it's like Raiders of the Lost Ark. They were looking for the Ark of the Covenant and these crazy, ancient treasures. And evidently they had some of them. And she was able to see them. And like the book of Thoth and, like emerald tablets and things that they had these treasures that they went and discovered and found. And she was saying that Elon Musk's mother, whose name is Light, she was the queen witch, or, whether queen mother of the satanic offspring of Satan on the planet. And they were here to, they had a program, his grandpa used to call it, to be like the Pied Piper, to lead the world into insanity and get them to be taken over by robots, and the robots would take us over. And he would be this little astronaut boy and take us to Mars or some crazy thing. But she was told by those that she was with, remember, she was of this group too. Her father was part of it, whatever. She was told that when she asked him, is he the Antichrist? She was told that he is not the Antichrist, but that he would lead the deception. And she believes she believes that Donald Trump is the false prophet. She's guessing. I don't necessarily think Donald Trump's the false prophet. I would tend to think Donald Trump is more like the Antichrist or something. Remember, we've got several characters there in the book of Revelation. We've got the dragon, we've got the beast, and we've got the false prophet. There's 3 to choose from. But they were pointing out in Revelation chapter 10, I believe it is, talks about the out of the mouth of the dragon and out of the mouth of the beast and out of the mouth of the false prophet, 3 unclean spirits came out. Looked like frogs. In other words, disgusting little reptilian frogs. And they went and these inspired messages came out of these 3 frogs, which are demonic beings that were inside the beast, the false prophet, and the dragon. And they went to gather the world to the great day of Armageddon, to the great war. And she believes and says, and so she says that's what's happening. Elon is going to lead up this insanity. He was sent here. And so I would personally think that, I've said that I've been saying that I believe Trump is the Antichrist because of the fact that Israel has declared him to be the Cyrus, which was one of the messiahs of Israel. The Bible in the book of Isaiah says that Cyrus was his Messiah, Yahweh's Messiah. And he's not just compared to Cyrus by the Jewish people today, but he's on one of their coins. And of course, because he's so popular and hated in the world, it's obvious that Trump is leading up something. He's very connected with Tesla, with these papers with John Trump, and with Elon Musk, because Elon Musk made the Tesla, the cars, and all this stuff, and the space flight, and Elon Musk was dressed up like a Baphomet the other day at a party. So there's a connection between all of this. I wouldn't be surprised. Remember, the Bible does say that the Antichrist, or the little horn, will receive a wound in the head and then die. But then they will make an image unto the beast and give breath unto it, and everyone will bow down to the beast. Well, it's not just a beast, it's an image. I can't help, every time I see this, and I've been thinking this for years now, and I haven't changed my mind, that sounds to me very, very clearly to be AI. Who is it that's creating AI? It is Elon Musk. And if Elon Musk is what this woman says, because she was there and from the time that he popped out of the test tube, she is saying he is AI. He literally is not a real, he may be a robot himself, or he may be a test tube baby, but he's probably not human, she says. I wouldn't be surprised if he is the beast. Remember, Aleister Crowley wanted to open up the bottom of his pit so that the beast could come out. Well, according to her, Elon Musk's dad and his grandpa and stuff, if they're in California, were literally the group that was the Charles Manson group, the rock and roll satanic stuff. Anton LaVey was a part of their group. Marilyn Monroe, Doris Day, Gomer Pyle, the Mamas and the Papas, the Beach Boys and the Beatles, and the lady that was on that video that I want you to watch, Rosemary. She says that the Beatles song, Penny, I can't remember the name of that album. It's got Penny Lane on it. She was saying that it's about Penny Lane in Napa, California, which isn't far from Bohemian Grove. And that's where Anton LaVey was, and that's where they wanted to take Charles Manson. And she says there's a bunch of satanic temples in the area, and she used to go there and deliver raspberries, but it was actually drugs she didn't know. And so, but on the cover of this Beatles album that had this Penny Lane song, Aleister Crowley is seen on the cover. So it's not plausible that the Beatles and all these individuals, no matter how much they protest or pretend that they don't know, were part of the Aleister Crowley occult. I heard a thing on the television the other day where somebody was, I think it was an old clip, where somebody was interviewing John Lennon and asking him if Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds, LSD, like how did that get in there and who put it in there? And John Lennon said, oh, no, that was a coincidence. It wasn't LSD. It wasn't about that. And all the yellow submarine stuff and all the psychedelic and the LSD, there's no question they're lying. It was a part of the satanic agenda, even if somehow or another John Lennon didn't know about it. But I find that hard to believe. Obviously, the people that were producing the album and paying for all of this, the Polanski and the Marilyn Monroes and all of this Charles Manson stuff, it was a satanic cult. Charles Manson said that when Sharon Tate died, that murder and all that was a satanic ritual murder, that he had nothing to do with it. Well, Now we find out he might have been literally the head of a cult. This is why they had all these young girls. Like, what was that all about? Why was it this studio set somewhere in the mountains there in California where the Beach Boys were visiting them and they had all these young girls out there and orgies and people were coming in and out? It was a Hollywood studio set. So there's a lot of connections that we could go into, but it is real, friends. And all of this was a big satanic, they call it the holy wood, and they call themselves stars and idols. Yes, this is literally the propaganda, the satanic propaganda that they started from Project Paperclip, and they chose and they made this biological thing. They were able to clone or make a robot. Their stated goal was to make robots take over the world. That's what Elon's doing. So whether or not you believe Elon himself is a human or not a human, or whether he's this or that, or he's the beast or he's not the beast, what we do know is that Elon Musk and his family is a part of the NAZIs, according to eyewitness testimony. That's what it's about. That's where they were from. And they were involved in bringing up this, and opening this bottomless pit, just as Aleister Crowley was. Aleister Crowley's occult group from Project Paperclip and all of this was responsible for Anton LaVey and the Church of Scientology, which, by the way, we've seen in the past that people have said, and we have knowledge that Charles Manson was a member of the Church of Scientology. Well, she's claimed he was actually the grand poobah of this cult group in San Francisco area, which I've read some bits and pieces about. But she goes into it in detail and tells who these people were and what they were doing. Having these crazy labs where they were experimenting and doing all these crazy things and getting into robotics and mixing it with biotech and all of this. This is what this whole thing we see over there was headed up by Elon Musk's grandfather. And he was the chosen one. And they knew, but when he was just 2 years old, they said, this one will lead the deception. So, is he the beast? Is he the face of the beast? Is the beast AI? Or is AI actually going to be downloaded into Elon? Or is it going to be Trump that dies and then he's downloaded into Elon's computer body? Or, now think about it, if Elon, now evidently Elon wasn't born in the United States, so he couldn't hold an office here. He couldn't be president. Or he doesn't have a mother and a father, or some reason. He doesn't have a birth certificate or some reason. Who knows? Perhaps Elon is using Trump to become president, and then they're going to have him die and then somehow transfer it to Elon or something. Or, if nothing else, to his computer, which is run by the mad scientist Elon, right? Which is being told to us that it came from some guy named Tesla, some crazy guy, some tall, skinny guy that used to hole up in a building and eat nothing and was a vegetarian and come up with all these ideas that no one ever heard of before. And this is where we get the Manhattan Project. This is where, at the end of World War II. And it's at that point we start seeing all these abductions and flying saucers and the Roswell. And now we've got George Norrie, another one of these Bavarians, broadcasting this crap all over the airwaves. Nationally syndicated radio program, and all these abductees file onto his show and talk about it. And all these conspiracies. The flat earth and all of it. Anyway, guys, I'm going to leave it there. We're over an hour. I'm going to get this loaded. I hope you guys all have a wonderful evening. May the Lord bless you all. We'll see you tomorrow. Have a good one.